Hello, this is Energy and Environment Weekly. I am Joycelyn Elakeche Ada. On today's episode, we take a look at global warming and climate change, knowing the difference and Nigerians' perspectives towards this. Also, we will be discussing what it takes to be a climatologist. To shed better light on this, we have with us the National President of Nigeria Environmental Society, Dr. Efegbidiki Lympson Okobia. He is an environmentalist with over 15 years experience. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Before we talk to Mr. Okobia, the textbook definition of global warming and climate change is: global warming is referred to the rise in global temperatures due mainly to increasing concentrations of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, while climate change refers to the increasing changes in the measures of climate over a long period of time, including precipitation, temperature, and wind patterns. Climate change issues are caused by human activities such as greenhouse gas emissions, burning of fossil fuel, deforestation, etc. Over the years, experts in the field have called on global leaders to adopt policies that will mitigate the effects of climate change on the earth. Nigeria, in its passed the Climate Change Act that seeks to achieve low greenhouse gas emission and green and sustainable growth by providing the framework to set a target to reach net zero between 2050 and 2070. The Act includes provisions to adopt national climate change action plans in 5-year cycles. Mr. Okobia, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now we know the textbook definition of what global warming is and what climate change is. But to a layman, I did a research recently and I noticed that a lot of Nigerians do not even understand what climate, yes, they hear it, but they don't know what climate change is. How can you define climate change so that the layman would understand what climate change is?
Okay, I'll try to, as much as possible, simplify it. To the layman, it means weather parameters, that's temperature, rainfall, humidity, has begun to change. Now, that is visible to the layman because, take for example, farmers. If they used to have rainfall at specific time of the year that helps them regulate their farming pattern, and they notice that, oh, rain is supposed to start this month, but it has delayed for about 2-3 months. It shows that there is a seasonal change in rainfall pattern. Okay, that begins to show that, oh, there are climatic conditions. Okay. So the change in climate is beginning to take effect. I think
that's
climate change
sums it up. That's what climate change
exactly.
is. When the weather changes,
yeah.
And you know, according to scientists, this happens because of human activities. Am I correct?
Yes, anthropogenic activities.
Explain that.
Now, take for example, in a specific locality, you don't have a normal pattern of waste disposal. Okay. I want to use something that is predominant and common to everybody.
Yes.
And you have an illegal dumping waste site, maybe close to the community. And every time the waste dump is piled up, what you go, you lit fire on it and burn it. Now, that evaporation of the heat into the ozone layer, and, you know, causes damage to the atmospheric weather. Now, you see, the troposphere has chemical particles that actually goes up based on human activities that changes the dynamics within that space. So we humans, unknowingly and sometimes knowingly, carry out activities that leads to change in climatic conditions.
And that's just what climate change, the effects of human activities on climate change is. How prepared are Nigerians for this in tackling climate change issues? We know that gas flaring is still ongoing in the Niger Delta. Fossil fuel is still a major part of this country, and we all know that global leaders are calling for the halt in fossil fuel. So how prepared are Nigerians for this, apart from all the policies we're passing and all the acts that we're passing?
Well, when you say Nigerians, it's become a generic term. Nigerians, you need to look at institutions of government and agencies that are meant to implement some of these strategic plans to help reduce climate change temperature to less than -2. Now, Nigeria has signed as part of the Paris Agreement. That means we have to make conscious efforts to, as much as possible, try to reduce, most of our activities to fall within that temperature. I would say we are prepared. We are prepared in the sense that we have, laws. Of the National Council for Climate Change is already in place, and is supposed to be the anchor with regards to climate change activities. Prior to that act and that council, you have the Department of Climate Change in the Federal Ministry of Environment, who has been the focal point with the UNFCCC, United Nations Framework for Climate Change, who has been piloting issues on climate change over the years. And they still do.
Yes, they do.
Because they have their statutory function. Now, you also have other agencies of government like NOSDRA, NESRA, Department of Pollution Control, Department of Marine, Department of Forestry. These are agencies of government and ministries and departments that have statutory functions to help mitigate, by way of implementation of most of these government laws, to reduce, control, and put, if possible, most of the negative vices in our environment with regards to environment into proper sustainable ways. And most of these agencies are also implementing the SDG goals. SDG 13 has to do with climate action. So you find out that they're actually working towards that. But there's a caveat there. How effective are the implementation processes? I think that is what we should be looking at.
Yes.
The implementation of these laws, how effective, and how are we integrating it into policies and also our daily lifestyle.
And how are we, because Nigeria here, we still burn firewood practically every day. We still don't dispose waste properly. I just finished a special report in the FCT here where waste is still being dumped indiscriminately. We're still burning waste. We're still using firewood on a daily basis. Our farmers still believe in burning their farm lands before the farm. How would the government get to all of these people to change their mindset, to let them know that, okay, climate change is real and all this is going to affect us later in the future? How is that going to be done?
I would not want to hold brief for the government, but I want to also, say on the side that we as humans need to also do our bit. And I'll say this with a sense of responsibility. Now, yes, government have their own rules. They have laws to implement. But it is not government that dumps waste in drainage channel.
True.
It is not government that take waste to illegal dump sites. So it is we, Nigerians, who need to also have an attitudinal change towards our immediate environment. Now, your question again is how
would we be able to do this? Practically all of their lives, they've lived this way, and they don't feel that what is this climate change thing? It's not going to change anything.
No, it will. Let me take the rural areas. Okay. Let me start from there. There is urban-rural migration because of development, because of civilization. Now, I know some years back, one of these multilateral organizations, brought briquettes that could be used as a means of cooking stove, instead of fuel wood. Now, they have brought an initiative, a substitute that could help instead of, felling wood. are you now saying it is them that will implement it? No. It's just like a scientist coming up with a research findings and say, look, if you do X, you will get A, B, C, D. They've made that information available to you. Now, we on our part, as an NGO, the Nigerian Environmental Society, we have done a lot of awareness campaign.
Okay.
You know, and we do that on a regular basis. But we have our limitations though. Because when you pass this information, my coming here now is also a means of information and sensitization. When you bring all this information to the fore, to Nigerians, the question is, do they listen? Do they take this information and work with them? So these are issues we need to also begin to look at as individuals. Now, they say, oh, if you fall one tree, plant 10.
Exactly.
Now, I know there's a law, I'm not really sure about, I think I read it some time ago in the FCT.
Yes.
Where felling of trees becomes an offense.
Illegal law, yes.
Exactly. Now, for individuals who are, you know, building houses, they should also imbibe that culture of planting trees around the neighborhood. Now, trees has so many effects. It comes handy as food. Maybe you're planting a mango tree. It also comes handy as windbreaker. It helps when there are stormy seasons. You know, it helps to protect the building. It also helps to channel water, if it is close to the building, down into the soil. So it has its advantages. It also serves as shade when the weather is hot. So you see, all these things needs to, you know, get to us as humans to understand that our activities, our attitude towards our environment needs to change.
It really needs
and if we begin to imbibe this new dynamics, this new style of living, then you find out that our environment becomes more conducive for us to live in. The government has their role to play, but we as individuals live in the community, we live in the environment. Everything revolves around the environment. So if we destroy the environment, we're also destroying ourselves. Because the truth is, once you keep doing all these negative vices into the environment, a time will come when the environment will fight back. At that point, it is really difficult for you to reverse most of the harmful attitudinal, you know, activities we have put into the environment. So I think this is a clarion call. Not only the government has their own, you know, statutory roles to play, but we as individuals also have ours. So we should also take into consideration how we live within our immediate space.
I totally agree with you. Mr. Okobia, let's go into the international scene a bit. With all the call for the end of fossil fuel, Nigeria, Africa, some African countries we know that are basically, this is their source of income. Yet, African countries are not even #1 or even #5 on the list of emitters. The United States, for instance, Japan, these are the major emitters. But why do we get this feeling that the concentration is more on Africa? Why is it so?
Well, I think that's an assumption, except you tell me there's a scientific postulation to that Africa is, you know, has more emission. Well, that's
no, Africa doesn't. United States is #1.
Exactly. But I think what the challenge is, I don't want to call it a problem. What the challenge is that we don't have enough data to portray our present circumstances. And that is why the National Determined Contribution documents that each parties produce, Nigeria is able to step up, okay? From the first communication to the second and to the third. If you go through those documents, you see quite some improvements on national circumstances and data that has been put forward to the United Nations with regards to our national determined contributions. Also, our biannual reports that we also submit, there's been some improvements, okay? We are not there yet, but these improvements are visible. I know in the second biannual report, you know, national experts were also integrated to, you know, producing those documents compared to the first biannual report. So these are changes. These are, you know, bringing local national experts to play. Because if we don't report our true circumstances with regards to emission, okay, with regards to manufacturing production, with regards to energy, with regards to waste, with regards to power, you know, then whatever the international community say about us stands. Well, I think for Nigeria, I can't speak for other countries, there's been some improvements, quite sincerely. But more still needs to be done in the aspect of greenhouse gas emission data. Okay, we need to have an inventory database as a country. I know I was a consultant that did that for the Ministry of Environment, the greenhouse gas inventory management system. The first phase, to do an appraisal and also give them a guide on what needs to be done. It has to be a systemic, you know, submission pattern. When I say systemic submission pattern, it's not going to be manual. You have, you know, database of all industries. You have database of all manufacturers. You have database of government institutions, NNPC. You just named NNPC is not private limited, though. So, you know, you have all those all those agencies and all those, you know, manufacturing industries that submit their emission on a daily basis or monthly basis to the greenhouse gas inventory database. Now that you have the National Council on Climate Change, okay, I did an organogram that shows when the Department of Climate Change was a focal point. Now that there's a shift, I think that organogram needs to be redefined, so that, you know, the flow of information on greenhouse gas emissions needs to be seamless. But once you have that information in a database, it will be easier, more convenient and transparent in reporting your national emission standards. So I think that needs to be taken up as quick as possible.
I agree. Before we let you go, Dr. Okobia, finally, you run you're the national president of Nigeria's Environmental Society. What do you people do?
Okay, let me also try to make it very simplified. You know, we're an NGO, a non-governmental organization, and we have been in existence since 1985. That's over 34 years, about 34 years now. And we are professionals that, you know, does both practical and theoretical environmental studies. We do awareness, we do advocacy, and we also carry out information, okay, that has to do with environmental issues. Just recently, the ocean surge at Ayetoro in Ondo State.
Yes.
What we are doing presently, and we are going to bring it to public domain, we are doing a research looking at satellite imageries of that region, on the coastal region, we're taking it down the coast to the south, to see the extent of, you know, erosion and vast land mass that has been claimed. Because if this is not done, what happens in Ayotoro alone, over 350 meters from, you know, our satellite imagery, is been taken by ocean, by the water. And you notice that if government does not step in, if there's been no intervention, either by national or international organizations to assist, those communities will be wiped out in just a few years from now. But where do they move to? That has been their ancestral, you know, land. So these are not just issues. These are serious, critical national concerns. And that is part of what we do. We have also made, in time past, you know, calls on, you know, open defecation in the FCT in Kapua village. You know, we brought that to the public there to say, look, Who is the councillor in Amak representing this area? What we are seeing here is not decent for human living. There, if you go to Kapua, I don't know if they've done that. I'm talking as at 2017, 2018. I don't know if that has been done, but we brought that and we followed it up. So a lot is being done. What we're also putting to the fore at the moment is the Institute for Environmental Practitioners.
Yes.
And what that is to Nigeria is to say, look, for you to say you're an environmental practitioner, you must be qualified to carry out an environmental study, research, or project in specific areas. The environment is so broad. Ecologist is different from biodiversity. Somebody that is doing a research on biodiversity. You have people that does research on hydrology, the water. You have people that does on soil scientists, geomorphologists. These are different aspects of the environment. So if someone says an environmental scientist, what's your area of specialization? So we want to be able to identify people with regards to their areas of specialization and hold them accountable and responsible if anything goes wrong in projects they are part of. And I think not only for me, that's my own opinion, not only for the environment sector, even artisans should be, certified to carry out projects. It gives sense of responsibility. If anything goes wrong, you'll be held responsible for that. So when you are carrying out such projects, you are very careful. You work to standards and specifications.
Because you can be held accountable.
Exactly. So I think that is some of the things we're also putting forth. And we are, going headlong with that, though there are oppositions trying to stop it. But, this is also an avenue to say, look, we are all working towards a better environment. Yes. Why not we do what is right and help our country? The world is looking at sustainability going forward. So we must have the right people in place to be able to help drive that process of sustainability. So that is practically, in a nutshell, what we do.
Environmental Society of Nigeria does. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on Energy and Environment Weekly.
Thank you for having me.
We have the National President Act. So that means there is, you have chapters.
Yes, we have chapter chairmen in 27 states. So you see the reach and the coverage.
Yes.
While looking at the Earth Days gone, April 22nd, most of the chapters were out. Some were in collaboration with some government agencies. We're also working towards the World Environment Day coming June 5th. Okay. So these are things we do.
Before I quickly before I let you go, what message do you have for the upcoming COP28? What do you think should be on the forefront of for Nigerians to discuss, to bring to the forefront in COP28? What do you think?
Now, thank you for bringing it. I think we need to assess funds.
Oh, funds.
Yes.
There's so much litigations, around assessing funds. Yeah. There's so much clause, around it. And I mean, assessing those funds are so difficult. I mean, how are we going to break through all of those?
It's not difficult. And that is where the issue of data comes into play.
Oh.
If you say you want money from me, first you need to tell me what you're doing. You need to show me how far you've gone with regards to reducing climate emission circumstances and also greenhouse gas within your country. So there are a lot of funds. Global Environment Fund is funding a lot of environment projects in Nigeria. The UNDP is also helping and supporting in funding. UNIDO is also doing same. UNIDO is working on the plastic recycling plant in the FCT. So there are a lot of funds that are coming in, but it is not enough. Good as we may say we need funds, we also need to also probe and criticize and audit the local funds that are being used by states, local governments. Because waste management is the responsibility of local government. So we should begin to ask the local government chairman, what are they doing with the waste management funds within their local government? The world is looking at circular economy. Look, we need to up the game. We need to, change and move in the right trajectory and direction. We are looking at circular economy where there's actually no waste anymore. Every waste is utilized in one form or the other. You recycle it and bring it back to use. So waste is actually a resource. With the circular economy, in place now.
Yeah.
It's not waste, it's a resource. So we should begin to look at it as a resource.
And so what's the message for COP28?
COP28 is we should go prepared to present our position, national circumstances, what we've done, and what we need to do, and the support we need from Conference of Parties.
That's the National President, Nigeria Environmental Society, Mr. Efegbidiki Okobia. We'll take a short break. When we come back, more stories from the environment and energy sector. We'll be right back.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be willed by mere declarations, nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite.
This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners and operators of ASO Radio 93.5 FM Abuja, ASO Television DSTV Channel 392, Star Times Terrestrial Channel 127, Free TV.
Welcome back to Energy and Environment Weekly. The Director General of the National Biotechnology Development Agency, NABDA, Professor Abdullahi Mustafa, says partnering with medical practitioners in the country has become necessary for sensitization on the safety of genetically modified organisms, known as GMOs. He said GMOs pose no scientific threat to human health. The DG said this at the Biotechnology and Biosafety Sensitization Workshop for Medical Practitioners, organized by the Open Forum of Agricultural Biotechnology, OFAB. The report. Director General, National Biotechnology Development Agency, NABDA, Professor Abdullahi Mustafa said it has become imperative for the agency to partner with medical practitioners so as to enlighten Nigerians on the safety of genetically modified organisms. He said medical practitioners and stakeholders need to support the federal government's drive in enhancing food productivity and availability by partnering with NABDA to deepen Nigeria's biotechnology experience.
And medical practitioners, when you look at it, their contact with patient and their relationship with patient, I mean, they see thousands or hundreds of thousands of people per year. And then people rely on them as medical expert for advice. So why we consider them as stakeholders is they have to know the actual knowledge. Actually, they are scientists. When we tell them what we are doing in using GMO, it means that they will understand it more and they will now disseminate the information to their patient. So as critical stakeholders, we need to enlighten them, we need to give them lecture, we need to tell them what the process is being, process is being followed to come up with GMOs. And that is why we said, okay, they should come and then we have interaction with them. They ask any question that they feel like asking because they are dealing with health issue in the country. So if they tell the patient this thing is safe, definitely they will understand. And you know this is science. you have to communicate to those that understand science first to disseminate the information. So that is why they are very much considered.
The Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the National Biosafety Management Agency, Dr. Rufus Ekpegba, said the sensitization workshop is key as some medical doctors do not have proper knowledge on GMOs. He said GMOs have been accepted globally and convey economic benefits.
Yes, the medical personnel, they need to be properly informed. There have been a lot of controversy in the area of genetically modified organisms and application of modern biotechnology. Let me make this very clear. Most of the potent drugs we currently have all over the world are derived from genetically modified materials. So when people sometimes talk about GMOs that have been confirmed safe, that they still doubt such products, I think either they are dwelling on ignorance or it's a deliberate attempt not to, in fact, to mislead people. And it's unfortunate that some medical doctors have been on the part of those who have created a lot of fear in the minds of the public. So this gathering today is very, very key, and it's germane for them to understand what are the issues surrounding GMOs and what effort government has made to ensure that all GMOs that are approved are safe for human consumption, and also ensure that they don't have any negative impact on the environment. And also, these products also confer economic benefit, because there's no product in the world should be allowed if there are no benefits, and that is what it is generally in all technological applications. So the issue of this meeting today is key for the medical doctors so that they can open their horizon to understand that GMOs globally, even World Health Organization says about GMOs, FAO says about GMOs, these things are very clear that no GMO so far produced all over the world has been seen to be harmful to the environment or human health.
The former Director General, Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, Professor Nasidi Abdulsalami, said genetically modified crops are efficient and cost less to cultivate. He said they pose no threat to human health, calling on Nigerian farmers to adopt the process.
That the traditional methods we are using to produce drugs, biologicals, vaccines can no longer, hold. If the population of the world is increasing, you need more of these products. So you need new techniques to produce more products.
The workshop is expected to bridge all existing information gaps between agricultural scientists and medical practitioners on activities of genetically modified organisms. Joycelyn Elakeche Ada for Energy and Environment Weekly. Still on the environment sector, Nigeria may have serious challenges in food production in the coming future if issues of security and climate change are not properly addressed. These were the words of the Director General of the National Biosafety Management Agency, Dr. Rufus Ekpegba, while he was presenting his scorecard in the last 8 years that he served as the DG of the agency. Here's the report. Reeling out the agency's achievements in the last 8 years, the Director General of the National Biosafety Management Agency, Dr. Rufus Ekpegba, called for more funding in the improvement of modern biotechnology and surveillance. He said safe application of modern biotechnology should be embraced as it will lead to surplus food production in the country.
The other thing we also try to do is institutional arrangements to make sure that every organization that will be doing genetic engineering in Nigeria is adequately profiled and approval is granted. If you look at the board, we have some of the institutions that we have given accreditation to: Federal University of Technology, Akure, Institute of Agricultural Research, Zaria, International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, Ibadan, National Biotech Development Agency, which is a major agency that is saddled with promotion and development of biotechnology and deployment of products of modern biotechnology in Nigeria. National Cereal Research Institute, Badegi, National Root Crop Research Institute, Umudike, Bayero University, and in Kano and University of Calabar, who granted accreditation to the institutions by going to the institution to assess their facilities and also the competence of their various staff that will be working and areas that we need biosafety knowledge as well. The national, we also, one of the major institutions that is structure that is needed in the area of biosafety, National Biosafety Committee. We have been able to institutionalize this, and also the technical committee too, we have been able to put that in place. These are some of the people who have been reviewing, members of the NBC that have reviewed the application. We have also been able to put other instruments to ensure effective implementation of the Act. The National Biosafety Policy and several regulatory operations. My documents have also been developed, approved by various governments at any level. We have also ensured that our international agreements, which Nigeria signed, that have relationship with about biosafety, we have met all the international requirements, and we have been functional in the attendance to meetings and also meeting national reports and other operations. The major international agreements that relate to the agency, the Convention on Biological Diversity, with the objective of conservation of biological diversity, sustainability of biological use, and equitable sharing of benefit derived from biological resources, and the Cartagena Protocol, which is an international agreement it's a global agreement to ensure biosafety globally, to ensure that modern biotechnology activities do not impact on the conservation and sustainable use of biological diversity, taking into account risks to human health and focusing on transboundary movement of living modified organisms. Then the Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol. This protocol talks about liability and redress in the face of GMOs causing any harm, who will be liable and what will be done to redress such damage. Yeah, the funding level is weak, and it's not just to the agency alone. Globally, particularly in Nigeria as well, there have been a constraint to see how we can manage the resources we have in this country being spread to other sectors. And I think the little they have given to us, we have been able to do the best we can. There could be improvement in the funding to be able to do more, particularly in the area of surveillance of GMOs, and also doing research work on the biosafety research is also critical.
The DG said Nigeria is one of the leading biosafety agencies in the continent, establishing the first GMO detection and analysis laboratory equipped with standard machines and genetically modified organisms detection kits, as well as GM food testing kits for rapid detection in the country. He said prior to this, GM foods and grains flooded the country's market unapproved and untested.
To produce not just the food that Nigerians will eat alone, but the food that will give enough nutrition, to balance nutrition, and also the scientific community need to work harder so that our food can be healthier. Because right now, it is what we eat that have been manifesting to various ailments in the area of diabetes and ulcer. They should look at this critically so that less money will be used on drugs, but
the National Biosafety Management Agency, NBMA, established in 2015, is committed to ensuring proper regulation of modern biotechnology and its products so as not to cause harm to human health and the environment. The agency is also to ensure the regulation of new and emerging areas of modern biotechnology such as gene drive, gene editing, synthetic biology, and to ensure biosecurity in Nigeria. Dr. Rufus Egbegba is the Pioneer Director General of the National Biosafety Management Agency. Joycelyn Elakeche Ada. And quickly, before we go, an update on fuel subsidy removal. The federal government has explained that the fuel subsidy removal will not be implemented now until when the cushioning measures are effected. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, stated this in Abuja on Thursday, shortly after the National Economic Council NEC meeting chaired by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osibanjo. The minister noted that the federal government has expanded the subsidy removal committee to include teams from the incoming administration and the state governors to work out a roadmap for the removal of the subsidy, and that no change in the overall policy direction regarding the petrol subsidy is envisaged by June 2023. According to her, the 2023 Fiscal Framework and Appropriation Act, as well as the Petroleum Industry Act, PIA, have made the provision that government should exit fuel subsidy by June 2023. She said that the NEC deliberated on the issue extensively and came to the conclusion that the subsidy must be removed as it is not sustainable. But there is a need for further consultations, especially the need to determining the exact time and measures to providing support for the poor and vulnerable.
Council agreed that the fuel subsidy must be removed earlier rather than later because it is not sustainable. We cannot afford it anymore, but we have to do it in such a way that the impact of the subsidy is as much as possible mitigated on the lives of the ordinary Nigerian. Committee's work, which will include the representatives of the incoming administration, determine that the removal can be done by June, then the work plan will be designed to exit as of June. But if the determination is that the period needs to be extended, it will mean that we will have, as a country, will have to revisit the Appropriation Act, for example, because the 2023 budget only made provision up to June. So if we are extending beyond June, it means we have to revisit the Appropriation Act and do a supplementary or amend the bill and also the PIA.
While highlighting that the Subsidy Removal Committee currently comprises the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited, the downstream and upstream regulators, Central Bank of Nigeria, and the Chief Economic Advisor to the President, that this is coming on the backdrop of the story in some media that the federal government has suspended the removal of petrol subsidy. And that's as much as we can take on Energy and Environment Weekly for today. Join us again next week, Monday, same time, same station, for more updates on the energy and environment sector. I am Joycelyn Elakeche Ada. Good afternoon.